mutual screen, and I still see smiling faces. This is a good sign. Aisha.
Okay, thanks, Marcus. So then I'll take over with a little delay with introducing the panel, and you just saw it. You just saw it now that it is how we title it: a panel on achievements of EU and Western Balkans youth cooperation. Within those two programs, Erasmus Plus and European Solidarity Corps, or actually what was also previously EVS as part of the Erasmus, with looking a little bit into the future and looking or tackling a little bit the changing situation that we are all living in now. So we will be looking from local to international levels. We will be looking from practitioners and academics perspectives. And for this, I have four amazing people with whom I will discuss. So I will ask also them to unmute themselves while I'm giving this introduction. And for the rest of you, please stay muted. And if there are any reactions, you can use the reaction buttons on the Zoom or chat function, so that this really let's try to make it as a panel within the meeting. it's a bit nested in the meeting. It's a bit challenging, but let's try to do it. We will explore, as it was announced, what is the focus, what was in the focus in the current programs, from the what was the trends from the perspective of those four panelists. Look at some important developments and some achievements that they noticed, but also tackle the issues of how maybe the organizations can think about using the programs more effectively, because they are there and there is a certain amount of money and support that is available. And to some extent, maybe also even how the programs could be more useful or more effective in achieving what is the political agenda there. So without further ado, I would ask my four colleagues here to present themselves, and I will go in the order in which I see you. So I see Marco first, you. So just shortly, who are you and which perspective are you bringing to this meeting, let's say?
Well, thank you, Aisha. Well, good morning to you all. My name is Marko Kovacic, coming from Croatia. And basically, I'm here presenting actually the academic perspective due to the fact that I work as a research fellow in youth studies at the Institute for Social Research. And I also teach youth studies at the University of Rijeka. And I'm really looking forward actually in sharing my own, experience in cooperation in the region, but also, just talking about youth work per se, which is one of my favorite topics. So yeah, looking forward to spending some time with you today.
Thank you, Marco. Then I have Helena, so introducing yourself shortly.
Hi, my name is Helena. I'm originally from Serbia, but in the last 5 years I live in Kosovo, and I also lived in Croatia. And I'm here on behalf of Gaia, organization which is the official branch of Service Civil International for Kosovo, and I will present a very local perspective of our environmental community-based programs.
Thank you, Helena. Sanda, you are next on my screen.
Morning to everyone. My name is Sandra Kočević. I'm coming from Montenegro, from Organization Association for Democratic Prosperity ZID, or ADP ZID, maybe it's better known. We are working a lot on the field of digital economy, social economy. Generally, social innovation are in our focus, and employment of youth. And generally, we are working on developing different social innovation and testing, which are related to the youth employment. And actually, my focus is on the focus is on the civil society organization, and how through Erasmus Plus programs and can bring much more to the youth. Also, ADP-ZID is a contact point for Erasmus Plus program for Montenegro and European Solidarity Corps as well.
Okay, thank you. So you know all we know all stereotypes about Montenegro is about being lazy, but then when we are speaking, we are just taking our time. So thanks, Sandra, for shortly introducing yourself. And I will give also the floor to now a special person who has two roles in this meeting, which is not so easy. So Marcus will also be a panelist. So please now another hat, Marcus, and present yourself from the perspective of, what are you bringing to this panel now specifically?
I forgot my puppet. Usually I have a chicken with me, Cinderella, and she could talk for me. No, my name is Marcus. You met me already. What I'm doing here, I just turn around. You perhaps see the logo. I'm living and working in Weimar, which is it's in the nowhere of Germany, actually. It's really in the middle. We call it the green heart of Germany. Green hearts, anyway. Well, seriously, I'm working as an educational program manager in a quite big foundation. We are a youth meeting education center. We have, we used to have 160 beds and 20 seminar rooms. So we are hosting educational activities with under one logo, and the logo is called, and you can see it here. For those, it's mirrored and it's in German, but I will translate for you. What's strengthening and what's endangering democracy. This is our slogan, and this is the purpose of our work. And I'm one of 10 educational program managers here in the house. I'm in charge for international youth work. And the perspective I might bring in here, and it's just an offer, I'm not part of the Southeast European societies. I'm not part of local communities. I can only bring the outside perspective. I was living and working in Serbia and Bosnia many years ago. I'm a historian for Southeastern European history, with specification in the socialist period. But I'm still an outsider, so I can have only this outside view, but I think it helps sometimes. And this is what I try to bring in.
It looks like you would fit as Montenegrians with short introductions. So, sorry. Thank you, Marcus.
Whenever you can.
I think with this you can now also join me in really saying that these are four very interesting people that we managed to put together to actually enter into this discussion. And as said, we will start discussion by looking into what are the current meaning in this program, so not necessarily just today and specifically influenced by the latest developments, but what are the topics, approaches that were really in focus in youth work through those European youth programs that you have seen in youth work, maybe also youth research, youth policy, all those levels. And I will ask Helena to start us off with just mentioning that, as you said, Gaia is focusing on environment and sustainability, but how relevant is that found by the communities in which you work? If you want to start us off with that.
Mm-hmm. Well, okay. Well, Gaia is present at the moment in three communities. So not all of our programs are environmental, but we do have environmental aspect in each of them, and also because we use permaculture ethics to reflect into all our work, and that means that we reflect through earth care, people care, and fair share. And whatever our program is about, either it's in Gračanica with Roma kids, or in Mitrovica, which is divided city, where we work on reconciliation, or in Božac, where we work on permaculture, we take all aspects into account. So environmental aspect is never only enough, and we need to take into account social aspect and community level. And Kosovo, as a society, is dealing with very different environmental challenges. And I can divide them maybe in two. On one side, communities facing with environmental injustice and high pollution due to coal power plants or construction of hydropower plants. And on the other side, there are some places which are still preserved and they need to remain preserved. So our programs with international volunteers and also through Erasmus+, with youth exchanges, with capacity buildings, they either support fighting injustice, environmental injustice, which also has a community and social component, or is helping communities to preserve what is still not destroyed and destructed.
And would you say that those kind of programs are now interesting, or that are, let's say, trendy, sexy for volunteers also?
I would say that they were always.
To see this perspective. They were always.
interesting. They are, and they will be even more interesting. And that's also very visible in the last 2-3 years with the awakening of young people and creation of a big climate movement. And it's backed up with many studies and scientific and social. And it is, and it should be even more addressed, because it is about the future of young generations.
Okay, thanks, Helena. So I will switch to a little bit different topic with which Sanda is bringing, and it is about social innovations and digital economy that she was also mentioning in the introductions, related to also youth in the labor market. So how are those topics seen among young people? How relevant are they for them, and also for the other relevant actors in different stakeholders that you are working with? How would you describe this?
Well, thank you, Aisha. Social innovation and digital economy represent significant potential for the general economic development of the region. Our governments recognize this potential and have produced strategic documents for the development of these industries. And ICT technology is one of the main priorities of the Montenegrin government. Unemployment, particularly youth unemployment, actually represent a pressing problem in Montenegro, not just in Montenegro, in the whole region. We know that it is noticeable that unemployment rate are significantly higher in small municipality and border regions compared to the capital or bigger cities. Some of the main reasons for these high unemployment figures among youth are the official education system is not supporting young people with level skills and the knowledge that are necessary for them to be competitive on the labor market. This is one, and the first that is the first region, and under development of entrepreneurship skills among youth is a barrier to employment. Generally, territorial concentration affect their education chance and consequently their future employment position. And actually, what is the which part can be useful from sorry, what do you want to...
So what I want to check with you also is if on this topic cooperation with program countries or other European countries is helpful or not. What was your experience?
What is actually helpful? Yeah, what is the helpful realization of the exchanges through Erasmus Plus program, especially I will mention program which is not directly related to Erasmus Plus, but is the same fund from European Commission. It's actually a program in Erasmus for young entrepreneurs. It's really useful because young people have opportunity to working on their skills. They can learn practical thing, and that they can learn through doing. Actually, through different exchanges, they can gain the practical knowledge. And actually, that is the main point when we are talking about our educational system from one side and what they different European program can give to the young people from this region. Actually, that is the practical.
Okay, so they're feeling. Yeah, they're feeling the gap of lack of practice, actually. Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Great. Thanks, Sanda. I will move to Marcus, who was introducing. Marcus, you were saying that you are working in human rights education and dealing with the historic civic education a little bit. Are those topics at all, let's say, trendy or interesting in the Balkans that you were finding?
I'm not going to cry then. No, seriously. I think Southeastern Europe, and now it's very hard for me because I'm speaking about your region, is full of history and most probably more history than we ever can cope with. but if you look at the programs which were implemented in the previous decades, and now I'm speaking nearly about 20 years, I'm part of these programs. Of course, it played always a role. You cannot do youth exchange in Bosnia without dealing with the happenings of the past. But the question is, was it coming because it is anyway there, or is it because people intentionally were dealing with issues and trying to focus on or to tackle issues? So to make it short, not as much as I would wish for, being fully aware that these are sensible issues, painful issues, that this is not easy to deal with, but it has also something to do with the program, of course. If we look at the history of the programs, we are focusing for a long time on individual competences, we are focusing on entrepreneurship competences, employment, which are completely understandable. And I also refer to you, Sandra, completely understandable for the region that these are important issues. But now jumping to my perspective, having the concentration camp of Buchenwald 20 minutes from here, we cannot just deny this. Yeah, and if you're living around Vukovar or wherever, you cannot deny that. You have to live with it, and you have to deal with that. And from a perspective of a youth worker, you should as well. But this is now again a very outsiderish perspective. Don't get me wrong. No? I can just say. I can just say I'm happy that we are back in the program to elements of citizenship education, to democracy education, that civic education plays a big role in the programs again, solidarity, which is a part of this. And we have here, at least from my perspective, the how to say, the experience of the German-French, the German-Polish, the German-Russian exchange programs running. And we see on a daily basis, not just referring to Buchenwald and what's around Weimar, this kind of work is needed more than ever. I try to be short, Aisha.
Thank you, Marcus. And to the point, thanks for that as well. And you mentioned something that's very interesting, and I will ask Marco to actually respond a little bit to that. So you mentioned the importance of the role of youth work to actually tackle the issues that are also maybe not always in the mainstream, and that might be kind of, you know, left in the past, or maybe even a taboo sometimes. And Marco, you are working a lot on professionalization of youth work, and it seems to be a very trendy topic or kind of priority in the region. What could you share with us? You are involved in different of those processes, but what are the main focuses of that process now? Is it also around this? What are the content of youth work, or more just the recognition in a way? So please.
Okay, so from my point of view, basically there are two main aspects when we talk about the youth working region. On the one hand, we have this topic-wise perspective, which my co-panelists actually covered. So this is a focus on environment or sustainability, employment, dealing with past, and so on and so forth. Also, I would perhaps add here culture, then the focus of participation, and then to some extent actually the focus on gender equality per se. So this aspect is the focus-wise or topic-wise. But on the other hand, there is something that I call the structure-wise approach to youth work, and it's quite well, I would say, that visible in the region. And this is basically the focus on professionalization, on recognition of youth work, education of youth workers, but also on the focus of quality. From my point of view, if I would do it, perhaps if someone would, ask me to do analysis of the Western Balkan youth work, I would say that basically you can see actually division in two lines. On the one hand, you have countries that have much more developed youth work structures. For instance, Slovenia or Serbia, if you want to put Slovenia into this category. And then they talk discursively, they don't talk about professionalization of youth workers, they talk about the quality of youth work. I mean, in Serbia, of course, they don't call it quality of youth work, they call it ethics. But basically, to the bottom line of ethics in youth work, what is trying to do is basically to set standards for quality youth work per se. And then on the other hand, you have countries such as Croatia, then Montenegro, but also Macedonia, that do not focus as much as on quality as they focus much more on professionalization or actually the recognition of youth work, because the structures have not been established yet. Therefore, they need, just first to build, the ground, and then in order to proceed to the roof. So I would say that when we talk about youth work, the topic-wise is one thing, and it's very important, the focus on a policy, but then on the other hand, there's these structural issues that are, or structural actually aspects that are also as relevant, or yeah.
Super, thanks Marco. And I think now with this let's say first round, we actually tackled the topical issues that are there in terms of tackling injustice and the environmental issues that are becoming more important, as well as those more related to the everyday reality of young people, also in terms of unemployment and innovations that are pressured on them. And not forgetting those that are important in terms of dealing with the past, so that we can move forward, that Marcus brought in. And Marco, you were sharing the examples now of how youth work is developing in the region. And I think we can move to the kind of next stage of this discussion, which is to maybe share some of the specific successful examples of the things that you were involved with, all four of you. And I will ask Marco, you to start us with, maybe to share example exactly where, let's say, program countries and neighboring countries, how we are called in this context, were cooperating, but to create something greater, bigger in terms of let's say, cooperation with academia, if there is an example that you can share.
Well, okay, so when we started planning actually this meeting, Serbia was still, it was not the program country anymore. So my example is going to focus actually on the cooperation between Croatia, Serbia, and Slovenia. But now, congratulations.
It's program countries.
For the last year, you become, full Erasmus Plus and European Solidarity Course country. But then perhaps I would like to share actually the one thing that is happening right now, and from my point of view, this is actually a very good example of cooperation in the region, but also the usage of the Erasmus Plus funds. And this is, I don't know whether you know, but in Croatia and Slovenia, what we're trying to do for the last year and a half, and we are going to continue doing this, is we're trying to establish actually a regional master program in youth studies, where one track is going to be youth work per se. So we decided that we're going to apply for the K2, Key Action 2 actually funding for Erasmus Plus, University of Rijeka, University of Ljubljana, and Croatia, or Institute of Social Research, and basically trying to set up a program that is going to be in English and that is going to, just to reflect actually the reality of the region. And then later on, so we first started actually this cooperation between these two countries, but then we got the invitation from Anna here, so hi Anna, where we to join into the project that deals not necessarily to the education of youth workers, but on ethics of youth work. And therefore we decided to join in and try to see whether we can, just incorporate their activities or their actually curricula of ethics of youth work into this new curricula for youth studies that we share. I mean, this program, this actually project of ethics in youth work has just started. So, I mean, it's going to be quite challenging, just to mitigate everything because there are two big projects, Erasmus projects. But, with this NAPOR perspective on ethics of youth work, and also Slovenian perspective on quality of youth work, and Croatian perspective on professionalization, basically this demonstrates that the cooperation in the field of youth work is really, really important. What is important to say is that this program is still not active, so we're still developing the curricula, and we will have, of course, open call for all the participants. But right now, we're just trying to see how the whole reality of the Western Balkan, not only Serbia, Croatia, and Slovenia, but also Bosnia and Herzegovina, Macedonia, Montenegro, Kosovo, actually can be incorporated into this initiatives. Okay. And without actually Erasmus Plus, which was the main source, the main initiative for funding this kind of stuff, basically this couldn't have happened.
Okay, great. Thanks, Marco, for describing this or actually outlining this amazing achievement. And it's something to look forward. And you had already a comment, is it possible to apply for the studies, which you replied that it's still in the process of opening the call, but then we will look forward to that. So in the sharing stories mode, I will ask Helena also to maybe share some of the stories that you have in terms of again, that it was happening through these programs and with the cooperation between program countries and neighboring region. But I think you have something interesting to share in terms of communication and connection that is being built between the communities and volunteers that are coming, international volunteers that are coming there. So please.
No, there is a lot.
Yeah.
It's really hard to select, but our programs, they are all community based, and they would not be able to exist without international volunteers, and this is what we are aware of. It's also the fact that Kosovo is a little bit different in sense of not just political, but also being more isolated, as everyone needs visa to travel. So exchange has an obstacle. We are present in some smaller communities, and this is a model that we kind of took or got inspired from Kuterevo, from Croatia, which runs volunteering programs for more than 30 years, 40 years now. Now we are present in a village in eastern part of Kosovo, which is most multi-ethnic and most tolerant and not so known. Here we have 6 international volunteers, and the whole program was actually boosted by an Erasmus Plus supported project, Permaculture as a Path to Peace, which we started 3 years ago. We had an idea, but without the project and without the international volunteers, we would not probably be able to, not even to start, not even to talk about now actually creating an educational center also for volunteers. And this is all done with the support of international volunteers. And this place specifically is a bit isolated and it's remote with the villages with elderly people. And we talked lately and realized that this cultural diversity and age diversity became a new normality here. It was a bit strange at the beginning, but now it's actually very normal.
So it seems those, let's say, more detached communities seem to be very responsive to the international volunteers' influence.
It's also on a very personal level, and not on community, but also very personal level, where you enrich the life of elderly people. And on a community level, it brings hope because many villages are actually dying out, and the lifestyle of rural communities is not that much appreciated. But when you get lots of young people from EU countries to this village, and they see that actually what they do and how they live makes sense and can teach young people something else, some kind of sustainability that goes beyond the mainstream, it brings hope and life and some other value.
Great message, Helena, and it seems like it raises the profile of the communities further, no? in the larger societal sense. No? So I'll move to Sanda. And let's hear the example from you of successful project or successful cooperation, so successful development. But maybe you can focus on this influencing the policy level. And I know you have done quite a lot in Montenegro in this sense. So if you have an example to share, please.
Yeah, I have a lot of examples from the field, but actually I just want to add something what Marcus and Marco mentioned at the beginning. Actually, that is the big difference between program countries and partner countries when we are talking about Erasmus Plus program possibilities. And regarding these differences, it's much harder from the organization from partner countries to develop and to work on the field when we want to practice what we learned from the previous programs and projects. And actually, I will mention as a good example 2 things. One is directly related to Erasmus Plus program, which is realized 2 years ago through this program. We set up social innovation school through which more than 15 people from the region they tested themselves in digital economy actually, and they developed a business solution for the recognized problems in the local communities. And actually, two of them, it was 10 different business ideas. Two of them are still alive. They are still working on them. And that is the one directly from the field, and it's really recognized as a good, positive, and valuable example realized through Erasmus+. And the other one, it's related to the policy level, as you mentioned. That is the policy solution which we proposed, not just from Montenegro, for the whole region, for the all Western Balkan countries, and it's related to the law on traineeship. While law on traineeship is really important, I mentioned in a previous question the difference between labor market and educational system, and actually traineeship is one on the way for testing possibilities and self-employment possibilities, and directly on them. We started with to advocate for this type of for the law solution 2 years ago, and actually we made some changes in Serbia and Macedonia and Albania as well. I hope through this advocated process we succeed to change voluntary law on volunteering in Montenegro as well. And I hope the next step will be work on these new possibilities for the youth. Actually, that is the possibilities of learning by doing through educational process or immediately after education, after higher education.
Okay, great, Sandra. Thanks for sharing this. And it seems the policy level changes or this domino effect is possible in the region, regardless of, let's say, these different borders that we are having all the time as very present in our lives. So I'll move to
sorry, Aisha, I want to add something on that. Yes, it is possible when we are working together. Actually, the base of the changes actually is common work. And we succeed this because we had possibility through civil society facility program to realize one big regional program through which we advocated for these changes for the youth, for the new possibilities for youth, especially when we are talking about employment policy.
And thanks for that. That's a very important message. So without partnerships and kind of joint efforts, it would not be possible.
Nothing. Yeah.
Exactly. And Marcus, would you like to share? I understood you are working a lot with the educational field. So if there is a successful example, again, in this framework of program neighboring countries, particularly Balkans, but if there is an example where maybe some cooperation with the educational field has happened and has brought things to further development that you would call success.
Well,
there's something.
I would say yes. I don't want to go too deep into projects now, because this is, I think, also part of the workshop session. But I see at the list of participants, and I see Boris Stamenic, and it popped up in my mind. Well, this is now a little bit. It did not. It was always there. If we speak about civic education or historic civic education, we implemented in 2018 in cooperation with Documenta from Zagreb. A large-scale Key Action 1 project consisting of 5 single activities, which the main part took place in Croatia with more than 60 youngsters over 2 weeks, where we are focusing exactly on this question: do we need places of victims and places of perpetrators, or venues of victims and perpetrators, in order to do proper human rights education? And this sounds now a little bit like, why this question? But there's a long story behind. I will try to make it as short as possible. But
I don't know, is it only me?
My internet connection seems
something happened a little bit, but you're back on.
So in order, if we want to do proper human rights education and use these places, and there's a discussion, do we need these places at all? How should they look like in sense of pedagogical concepts, programs, and being completely clear about that we do this in an atmosphere. Can you still hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, in an atmosphere, a political atmosphere, which is partially discriminatory, which is partially populist, which is partly racist. If I look at the history of the parties now in power in Serbia, I don't have to comment that, where they're coming from partially. And then to speak about human rights education, and then to speak about anti-discrimination work, anti-racist work, this was important part of this cooperation with Documenta, Center for Dealing with the Past. Later in the break, I will share the link to the YouTube video. There you can see, not now, but please at the break and after our meeting, a 20-minute documentary of this cooperation, which will continue also next year with a slightly different focus. I don't know if you get the message, but I think in order to fight certain developments, which we have everywhere, historic civic education needs to play a role. And we had cooperations like this one, where I think there we are going the right path.
Thanks, Marcus. And you were raising, and I will connect that with also what Sandra was raising before. You were raising the importance of political atmosphere and the context in which youth work is happening. And Sandra, before you were mentioning a little bit around the different opportunities that program is offering for the region and of course for the program countries. And I think with that we can move to this final part of the panel, and I will just remind everyone that comment section is there for you to react if there are anything that you would like me then at the end to raise the questions to the panel. So moving to the third part is basically let's look a little bit how can the programs be used more effectively. So you shared your examples with us, you shared what you saw as a trend, you shared some successful examples in which you were participating. And I would really like to ask you now, what are you maybe seeing if you use your analytical heads now a little bit? What are you seeing? What could be the recommendation for the people, for all those that are listening now, how to use the programs more effectively, having in mind political contexts in which we are, and not necessarily just in the Balkans, but kind of throughout Europe, and also the different opportunities that are available to program countries and partner countries. And we were thinking when we were preparing this program, that there are so many issues that we want to see move forward. For instance, youth participation, visibility of young people, human rights, claiming back the space for human rights, claiming back or preserving the space for civil society, the development of youth work that we tackled a little bit, the community development, the role of volunteering in the societies. I mean, there are so many. If I just go on with the list, it would go forever in a way. But what would you recommend, and what are the things that you are seeing that maybe could be utilized better? And I can start with Helena, and maybe also if you want, you can here touch a little bit on your experience with the pandemic that was hitting us in the previous months, in a sense of how that helped to test, let's say, new lifestyles or the skills that are needed for different kind of sudden and emergent situations in a way, and maybe also in relation to solidarity. I put a lot in front of you, so sorry, but you don't need to answer all of those. So please, your perspective. I was giving the introduction to everyone. So in terms of recommending to every one of us how to use the programs better, and maybe what are some learning points from the latest months?
Well, when you live in a village, it's much easier to deal with crisis, and that's something that was the strongest point probably for us. And we realized actually how much our programs do make sense. We had to mobilize volunteers from other programs to come here because it was impossible to continue with activities that engage people. But also what we noticed is that we are not prepared for crisis, like all of us. Even though we hear about climate crisis, environmental crisis, humanitarian, refugee crisis, it's in the narrative for the last several years, if not longer. But we are not ready for these things. And that's maybe something that we should think about in future also as something for the program, to think of some kind of rapid response mechanisms, if it would be possible to develop. If not, on the other side, I think that organizations should work on building capacity for young people and youth workers to respond to crisis more proactively, so that we are not shocked for a month, but that we can proactively react and to recognize the needs on the local level, helping elderly people or growing food for the community. Or what we did was on the initiative of the volunteers, we started questioning a lot everything, and then the volunteers started producing short videos on shifting perspective that were questioning our relation with soil, with bees, with nature in general, but also neighbors and solidarity in its core, not as humanitarian activity. And something else also learned from Kuterevo and from our experience, to take European Solidarity Corps and other volunteering options and programs into long-term perspective in our planning. If we want long-lasting societal change, we need to think in long run. One project, two projects, they don't change things. But now we can see that our programs, after several years, 3, 4, 5 years, do make sense. They depend on the volunteers, but it's some kind of symbiosis. So long-term perspective and also capacity to react on crisis proactively, some kind of resilience.
Great, and thanks for this message on long-term perspective as well, because that's also connected with the programs, how they are and how they are project-based and functioning in that sense, and how organizations can then actually plan or think long-term. It's really influenced also by the structure of the programs. Sanda, I will ask you here also to share a little bit of this as a volunteering center as well. You have seen the let's say rise of solidarity in the last months, but also in terms of the programs, what does it mean? If there is anything, Sanda, on solidarity and how program was, let's say, adaptive, or the project that you had ongoing, how adaptive was it to these new situations? What Helena mentioned a little bit, how we need to be more prepared, or any other recommendations that you might have for people, having in mind what you were saying before, the opportunities to use the program are less for us coming from the partner countries, so how to overcome those structural obstacles, let's say.
It is now when I'm looking on the previous period, actually all of us have a totally different mindset, and that is the result of the previous months. And I agree with Helena that we as organizations and our volunteers have to be prepared on this situation. But actually the main point is that our governments have to be prepared. That we don't have a policy solutions for these changes. And the situation in Montenegro, as in the whole region, was really interesting, because we have a big number of volunteers, but volunteering was forbidden. We have opportunity just to, volunteers had opportunity just to give their free will only through Red Cross. And Red Cross was the only one who was certificated and allowed to be active on the field. And actually that is because of that, we on the end of in the middle of April, we create manifesto on volunteering. And in this moment, it's not still public document, because with the partners we are working on them. We want to be prepared for the some next situation. And the document is created by ZID, and we're working with together with 6 voluntary organizations from Western Balkan countries on them. And when we finalize it, I will be free to send to all participants from this event. Maybe they want to sign it, to support it, and to practice it. Actually, what is the point of the volunteering and the free will? Generally, it is to be free in any situation, to help to the neighbor, to help to the elderly, to help to your own family, to help to friends, because we are we cannot be functional in the community only by ourselves. And it's the same as for the regional regional movements. It's the same for the local level or national level. We have to be interconnected, and we need to have a joint value and to have joint topic. And because of that, there's organizations who are working a lot since 2000 on the volunteering policy, not just in Montenegro and in the region. We have a lot of recommendations to avoid again this situation. But now, after all these months, we have totally new approach on new way of life. And actually, for Erasmus Plus and European Solidarity Corps program, I have a lot of I need to imagine a lot of new situation, because how we can how we will create and how we will realize new project and new solutions from now to the future. We always have to be ready to the new changes, and we need to be adaptable from now to
eternity. Thank you, Sanda. And it's really important what you are raising, the resilience to uncertainties and to different situations. And I think also for the new programs, I think this might be very important factor to take into account, how responsive and it can be to different changes that we might be facing. And thanks for sharing about volunteer manifesto. And I think it's good that you can share it with the people. I will move to Marcus to ask you exactly about something that Sanda touched a little bit with this cooperation with different stakeholders. She touched on it related to Corona and situation, who is allowed to volunteer or not, and which stakeholders have more validity there. But I would ask you to maybe comment on recommending something in terms of the use of the programs, in how the stakeholders that are involved in the programs communicate and how they build relations, or what opportunities lay there, that it's not just completely administrative process of, you send a project and you hope for the best, but that there is a bit more. What are your experiences? What you could recommend? How can we be more effective in that field?
Well, I don't know if I have really an answer to that, because I'm fully aware about the situation, not fully, but partially aware about the situation in the partner countries and the opportunities which are not, how to say, getting enormously increasing. And so, but what I wish for, and this would be one wish, is that the organizations which are active, and there's a lot of fantastic organizations active in the field, fight against this shrinking of the civic space, which was mentioned already. I really enjoy this, or would like to focus this, building long-term strategies to work and to think in the long run, to build when using projects, not to hand in this one day off, one fly dying, I don't know how these projects are called thing, but to think really in bricks and pillars, and to build upon your competences and cooperations and communication with the different stakeholders. And with that, I'm not just mean the international partners you might have for this kind of international exchanges, but to see also, and this is just my very, how to say, personal, professional / experience, to see Saltos, NAs, even the Commission, which seem to be far away for some of us, as partners in a common, I mean, there are diverse layers and levels and different strategies, not to saying that there's one common goal, but at least there are people working, and I focus on people working in different layers of these programs with a more or less, not similar, or with a vision of something, what we might call the question, how do we want to live together? This is big question marks. And I see, and this is my personal experience, and I'm very thankful for that, that I see NA stuff, Salto stuff, but even Commission stuff as cooperation partners, and to also work with them as such, and not just as, okay, they are sending this 20, 30, 40, 50, 100,000 euro, we do our stuff, next application. I'm now exaggerating a lot. I just try to bring it on the point. So to work also on these relations and on the communication, to be part of the discourse. Because the program is not just funding of 1-2 actions, it's a discourse, it's a discussion in a very broad field consisting of different layers, the policy field, the research, the academia, the youth work practice on the very local level. And to see this, even you're of course limited to your perspective always in what we're doing, because we have to sometimes, to trying to get this view on, okay, there's much more, and try to incorporate this into our activities. And yeah, but
super.
I have to be quick. So.
Yeah. Thanks, Marcus. And in being quick, you actually painted very nice picture in all the key stakeholders being a partners in trying to bring the same kind of agenda on the table, or same kind of change, or going towards the same goal. Since we are definitely running out of time, or have already run out of time, I will just offer you last chance to get some comments in the chat function of this Zoom. And while you are doing that, I will ask Marco also to give us a bit of recommendation. And I understood from when we were preparing this that Marco also has some recommendations for the program in itself. How can it be more effective and functional, particularly related to funding, Marco? So yeah, please shoot.
Okay, I'm going to try to be as brief as possible. So from my point of view, I think that, I mean, we can focus actually on two main stakeholders, national states and then European Commission, who is in charge actually for administrating or governing, to be more precise, of the Erasmus Plus. When it comes to, and this is something that relates both to actually the focus is mostly on partner countries. What I see from for instance, from Croatia and from Slovenia, more or less, and some other, Central European countries, is that once you become a partner country, basically the national funding for youth work is declining. And therefore it's very important, just to not to put all the eggs in one basket, just to have one funding, and this is Erasmus Plus, because then, youth work will not, or youth policy or youth research, whatever you want to call this community of practice related to youth, will not be as developed as it should be. And I think that this is unfortunately happening. This is happening because, national countries are saying, okay, so you have big sources of money from Erasmus Plus and European Solidarity Corps, and then perhaps we can, just refocus our budget into something else. And I think this is very important, just to underline that actually the European funding cannot be a substitute only for national funding. It has to be, just merged together. So this is perhaps focused on the national countries. On the other hand, in all these kind of forums that I'm known to be very critical towards, European Union or European Commission, but even though I truly support them, I think that they're doing an amazing job. However, there are certain stuff that are simply not adequate, neither for program countries, neither to partner countries, and more specifically to cooperation between partner countries and program countries. From my point of view, I think that administrative-wise, actually, it is absolutely required the new generation programs to be much more flexible. We have seen actually, and this supports actually my argument, this whole idea, this whole actually situation with pandemia, that is so important actually to have actually some kind of, you know, ad hoc funds that youth organization can apply to. Marcus and I think Sanda, they were talking about actually the shrinkage of the civil society, space for civil society. And this is particularly visible actually in the Western Balkans, because due to the economic uncertainties, basically the first thing that happens is that governments decide, okay, so, or local governments decide, okay, so we're not gonna actually allocate much more money for youth organization, because it's much more important, you know, just to preserve jobs, you know, to invest in health systems, and then youth organizations are basically left without money. And if this, if they're relied on only on European funding that doesn't have any, you know, opportunities, you know, just to open ad hoc initiatives at the national level. Don't get me wrong, I do know that European Commission decided to open the fund for ad hoc fund at the European level, but this is not intended for partner countries as such. Therefore, I think that administrative-wise, it would be much more, you know, benevolent and better for partner countries, you know, just to be much more flexible. Also, what is visible from my experience in Youth in Action and then Erasmus Plus, also that all the program countries basically start with local initiatives. So Key Action 3 or future Key Action 1, I don't know where this structured dialogue or EU dialogue, whatever you want to call it, is going to be placed in, basically is much more, it's much closer to these organizations, because they're just starting, you know, with this this application of youth project. Therefore, from my point of view, perhaps it would be, you know, just beneficial to invest more into, you know, conducting structured dialogue or EU dialogue at local level, and then, you know, just build upon with some partnerships. Because, I mean, if we talk about small youth organization, youth initiatives, it's much more easier, you know, just to focus on local level. And to underline that, I mean, let's be honest, EU dialogue doesn't work. I mean, at the national level, it doesn't work. At the European level, it doesn't work. The only place where youth dialogue or EU structured dialogue works is at the local level. And this is actually the least funded key action in the Erasmus Plus. From my point of view, also, I believe that and I'm gonna end here, is that we should perhaps focus, if we want, you know, just to develop, you know, further the participation, which is proven to be much lower, youth participation in the program countries or in the Eastern Europe than in the Western Balkan, than in the Western Europe. It is important, you know, just to find a way how to actually make young people be co-creators of the Erasmus Plus per se, and co-creators of decision makers, because it's very important. Participation is also a learning process. It's also something that is so important in the Western Balkans, because we don't have much of the experience of participation. I mean, we do have with the forced participation in the socialist country, in formal socialism, but right now, if we want to use, you know, participation as a learning tool, then we need to, you know, just to give them say in co-creating Erasmus Plus project. And this is something that is not happening right now. Therefore, I'm going to stop here. And if you have any questions, you just shoot.
Thanks, Marco. And you were really squeezing in quite a few strong and passionately strong messages in just a few minutes. So thanks for an effort in that. I will pull out two: the flexibility, the need for flexibility of program, and young people as co-creators of program and then projects, of course, is something that I think should resonate really strongly. And since we are really out of time, I will thank you as a panelist, both Helena, Sanda, Marco, and Marcus, really for this effort to say a lot in a fairly limited time. And I think there were a lot of messages that could be taken forward. For everyone who were now more listening and just putting a few of comments in the chat. We will continue with the program with possibility to reflect on this, and I hope this was an inspirational moment also in trying to, let's say, around what we can all think about, particularly looking back in order to look to the future. I will repeat and reinforce some of the messages. So readiness for crisis, long-term perspective, resilience to changes of organizations and kind of building that, considering all the stakeholders as partners around those programs, the need for fighting for civil space and this local level dialogues to be supported, flexibility of program, and young people as co-creators of Erasmus Plus and not just the projects that are there. I think with some of those messages, there is a lot of food for thought, I would say. And with this, maybe can we all just kind of applaud like this to the panelists? Yeah. So thanks, guys. Thanks a lot.